Hey, welcome back to the Coffee Chat with Chan. I'm Chan, your go-to journalist and news anchor friend, and I have another jam-packed episode on this week's weekly recap. We got to talk about the cleanup in the aftermath of Hurricane Milton. The Supreme Court is back in session and weighing in on several big cases. We're less than a month out from the presidential election and things are getting really wild once again. We now know when P. Diddy is going to be on trial and another wild accusation made against R.Kelly. All right, so you know the drill. Grab your cup of coffee and let's chat. Hurricane Milton made landfall Wednesday night over Florida before moving its way back into the Atlantic. As of Friday morning, millions of people were still without power. At least 16 people have died due to this storm. As the cleanup efforts really get underway for this particular hurricane, of course, cleanup efforts are still underway for Hurricane Helene that hit that same region and went all the way up through the Carolinas as of 2 weeks ago. This week, President Biden asked for emergency funding for those hurricane victims. Now, Congress is not in session at this time, and Congress would have to come back for a special session in order for that emergency money to be approved. They're not planned on being back in session until after the election. Speaking of the presidential election, though, we're less than a month out from Election Day. Election Day, of course, is Tuesday, November 5th, and the deadline to register to vote is actually taking place pretty quickly in several states across the country. If you have not registered to vote already, I'll leave a link below in the comment section for you with more information on how to do that and even with some deadlines based on your state. Of course, with us being so close to the election, a lot of the national media outlets are talking about polls. And right now, just to be honest, the polls are so close, especially in those swing states, that it's really hard to say whether or not Kamala Harris or Donald Trump actually has a real lead. Just about every poll I've seen, including the ones from CBS and NPR, have them within such close range that they're within that margin of error that you can't really call it either way. So with numbers like that, you can almost guarantee that one, the polls won't be able to tell you too much prior to the election, and two, this will be a very close election. I low-key feel like every single week on the Coffee Chat, I have another Diddy update, and this week is honestly no different. So this week, we learned that P. Diddy's trial will officially start May 5th of 2025. In a hearing this week, a judge announced that as the trial date. Now, we also got an update on how Diddy is doing in this hearing as well. His mother and his children were all at this hearing. Diddy seemed to be, well, like himself. He was talking and he hugged his kids and that kind of thing. Like, the images from the courtroom show that he seemed to be in high spirits, and his attorney even reaffirmed that outside of the courtroom in speaking to the press. His attorney said that, well, he's doing pretty well. He's in pretty high spirits. His main complaint really is the food in jail, which I guess no surprise there. One interesting thing, though, his attorney did after this hearing, which really grinds my gears, is he made a reference to Martin Luther King Jr. in this quote, essentially just kind of saying that, you got to go through tough times and you got to just persevere. Maybe it's just me, but I don't think if you have a client that's currently on trial for sex trafficking charges that you should try and liken them to Martin Luther King Jr. Just a thought. Anyway, so P. Diddy, of course, has pleaded not guilty to the racketeering and sex trafficking charges. His attorneys are still trying to get him released on bail. If you remember, two separate judges actually denied him bail, one for him being a flight risk and another for fears that he would actually tamper with witnesses. And in other sicko entertainer news, R.Kelly's daughter is now coming forward with allegations of sexual assault against him. So there's a new documentary out called R.Kelly's Karma, A Daughter's Journey, in which his 26-year-old daughter, Buku Abi, I really hope I'm not butchering that name, in which she talks about some of the allegations against her father. Now, if you remember, years ago, this is the same daughter who came out in favor of some of the victims of R. Kelly and saying that she believed the victims. She's also been very vocal about the fact that she thought her father belonged in jail. Well, now she's coming forward, and these are not new allegations. As a matter of fact, according to People magazine, R. Kelly's attorneys even responded to her claims, said that these were claims that she and her mother had made years ago and that they were unsubstantiated. Now, even in the documentary, the daughter goes on to say that how when she told her mother immediately stopped allowing her and her siblings to go over back to their father, R. Kelly's home, and even tried to file a police report. But police were unable to do anything because of the statute of limitations had passed. The documentary also features her mother, Andrea, who was married to R. Kelly for several years, and she has also made assault allegations against R. Kelly. Like with all of these cases, at some point, I think we all need to look at Hollywood and really examine what is actually going on there. But as always, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Like, do you think there's a pattern of this kind of behavior in Hollywood, or maybe there's something worse actually happening? Because we know the folks on social media are always talking about it. As a matter of fact, give me a like, hit that subscribe button, because later this week, I'll post another video taking a deeper dive into P. Diddy and R.Kelly and all of the different allegations against them over the years. And I might share a story or two of my own, because I've definitely had my own run-ins with both of them. The Supreme Court is now in session, and unlike their last term, this time around, they don't have quite the controversial cases as they did before. However, that doesn't mean that they don't still have some very big cases to decide on. One of the big ones they just weighed in on and issued a decision on was an abortion case out of Texas. In that one, they were trying to decide whether or not medical providers there in the state of Texas still had to provide emergency life-saving care, including an abortion, if it were to save a woman's life, even though that Texas has those incredibly strict abortion laws. Instead of actually weighing in and issuing their own decision in this case, the Supreme Court actually decided to just uphold a lower court's ruling and send it back down to a lower court. Now, one ruling we are waiting to hear on is about ghost guns. This one really deals with how they're regulated. So the Department of Justice is saying that these ghost guns should actually be regulated like any already manufactured gun, including background checks and having serial numbers, and even a registry for you to be able to track the parts. However, advocacy groups on the opposite side are saying, well, no, that's not fair. Taking a look at what's trending, Amazon held its annual Prime Day sale over this last week, spanning over 2 days. They had hundreds, if not thousands, of items marked down. My question for you this morning is, did you actually buy anything this year on Amazon Prime Day or days? The reason I'm asking this is because if you remember last year, there were a lot of people online claiming that prior to last year's Amazon Prime Day sales, they had put several items in their cart, only to find that once Amazon Prime Day actually happened and they looked at those items in their cart, the price had actually increased instead of decreased. I guess keeping with the retail theme here for a second, Spirit Halloween is now getting into the Holly Jolly spirit. So as of October 31st, Spirit Halloween, who is owned by Spencer's, who knew? Yeah, they're turning 10 of their stores into a Christmas themed store. So it's called Spirit Christmas, and they have a whole website and everything. You can go ahead and just check them out and see everything that they have to offer right now. They're going to turn 10 of their locations into a Christmas themed retail site. Now, if you were looking to go to one, just know these are all concentrated in pretty much the Northeast, with locations in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and I believe 1 or 2 in Massachusetts as well. And speaking of Christmas, I know it's not even Halloween yet. Don't shoot the messenger. But Hallmark is actually going to start showing their Christmas movies this Friday. That's right. So October 18th is the day in which they start showing their holiday movies, and they turn into 24/7 holiday. So they'll be debuting new movies on the Hallmark channel on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And on their other Hallmark networks, they'll even have some Thursday movie premieres as well. So I don't know about you, but it is just far too early for me to even think about the Christmas holidays. Like, obviously, I'm still in Halloween season, and I don't know many people who love Christmas more than me. If it's too early for me, it might actually be too early. Speaking of Halloween, though, that actually brings me to our what to watch list for this week. Of course, I am feeling all things Halloween and spooky and even scary, even though I don't do scary movies like that. So here's a list of some of my favorite scary movie franchises and where you can find them. Of course, like some of the tops like Halloween, Scream, like those you can find on Max. Hocus Pocus is over on Disney+. You even have a lot on Peacock, including Saw and The Purge. All right, friends, that's all for this week's recap on the Coffee Chat with Chan. I'm Chan, your go-to journalist and news anchor friend. Hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy this kind of content here on YouTube. As always, stay caffeinated, stay curious.